Hello again, and welcome to the St. Louis Blues Hockey Legends Podcast. Tom Calhoun here to shine a light on the stories of those instrumental in blues history. The Blues Legends Podcast is presented by Sarah Honda, O'Fallon, Illinois. Check out their 618 Sarah Bucks offer at sarahhondaofallon.com. On this episode, it's a visit with a St. Louis Blues Hall of Famer. Wayne Babych was an amazing athlete who decided on a hockey career even though he had other options. He was a shooting star when drafted by the Blues with instant success as part of the renowned Kid Line with Bernie Federko and Brian Sutter in the late 70s. If not for a succession of unfortunate injuries, he would likely be in the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto. He has a very interesting post-hockey life, too, that we'll get into shortly. Stay tuned as we talk it over with Blues Hall of Famer Wayne Babych in 60 seconds.
When it's time to find your next car, what's changed in your life? What's driving you to start the process? What are you really looking for? These are the questions we're asking at Sarah Honda. We believe in real communication, real problem solving, and trustworthy long-term relationships with our customers. We're part of your community, and we want you to be part of ours. At Sarah Honda, the experience drives everything. You've got a lot going on in life, and you depend on your car to get you to places you need to be. So when it's time for maintenance or repair, we know you need it done fast and done right. Convenience and quality customer service with team members you can trust. That's what you're looking for. We'll get you safely back on the road and back to your busy life. At Sarah Honda, the experience drives everything.
And on this episode of the Blues Hockey Legends Podcast, we are excited to have a Blues Hall of Famer on with us this time around. It is Wayne Joseph Babych. Mr. Babych, welcome aboard.
Well, it's nice to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Well, you bet. I'm glad we could finally work it out to have you on and get a little bit. We like to know the person a little bit more on the Blues Hockey Legends podcast. A lot of people know about the hockey playing person, but we like to know a little bit more about the person away from hockey, but we'll get into the hockey a little bit later on. Born in Edmonton, Alberta, and inducted in the 2025 Hall of Fame class for the Blues, along with the late Jim Roberts and Curtis Joseph back last January. First off, congratulations on that. Was that any sort of a surprise to you, Wayne?
Yeah, oh, definitely was. It was tough leaving St. Louis, and I the best years of my life were in St. Louis, and then to have a couple of old teammates phone me, and I thought, they joked with me for about a half hour trying to find a good site in my house to talk to them about an interview. And then finally Bernie says, Bernie Federko says, we're just kidding. We're so excited to tell you about this. And yeah, it brought, it was great. It's, had some tears in my eyes. I think those they saw it on the interview, but it's when it's an honor for, I think, whatever you do, and and especially in St. Louis, which is where my heart still is, and yeah, it was great. It was a great feeling.
Well, I was there that night, and it was a fun evening with you and Jim Roberts' family, and Cujo had a few choice things during his time on stage as well. But let's talk about Wayne Babych, the young person. Your parents were Edward and Tilly. I read that your dad passed away shortly after the Blues Cup run, and our condolences on that. Is mom still alive?
Yeah, mom's still alive, giving orders. She's still on the farm. She's our backbone, and she's, and now she just turned 87, and we go out there to visit her. Always someone's out there. It's kind of, she's our backbone, and they've given so much for us to go on to our careers, our remaining life. It's she's a great supporter, and I know they like again for me they did a lot of sacrifices for me and my brother and my twin sister. To go on and do whatever we what made us happy.
Hmm. Yeah, and I was going to bring up the fact that you have a twin sister, and not everybody has that. You and your brother Dave married twins. Am I right about that? And you,
Yeah, that happened in the '80s and ended in the '80s. Yeah.
oh,
So yeah, that's that's life. That things happen in life, and it was everybody was too young. Same thing happened to Dave, but it was kind of interesting. That was uh, one of the celebrations in Montreal when I scored my 50th goal. I met this gal, and it's kind of funny. We never met these two people in the same place. People thought maybe we walked into a restaurant or something, and it was kind of like a setup. But no, it wasn't even close to being that. Completely different parts of the world, and how funny. My brother's not. Well, I joke with him. He's not a very good-looking man, but any good-looking guy. But he was a family guy, and he's got 5 boys, and I have 1 boy, and it's yeah, and everybody, it's kind of funny. I'm from Edmonton, never had any idea of Winnipeg, why anybody would want to live here. And in reference to it, every time I came here, it was like 30 below or the floods in the south my first year. So it's everybody's gone. I'm still here in Winnipeg, and with that, maybe we had the golf courses and this, kind of established some business here, and now my son is here. He's my pension plan, so it's I'm sticking around.
yeah. So I read where your son Cole played a little hockey. How's that going?
He's doing great. He's kind of got a couple of injuries. I guess he must follow me a little bit. It's a little different formula now where they take care of well, they've always took care of our injuries to the best at the time, and yeah, he's like I say, he's my pension plan. A little story about him. He started the season, should have he got drafted, and well, he kind of had a shot at the Moose Jaw Warriors, and then he got hurt there and came back, and he was drafted by the Selkirk Steelers in the Manitoba Junior Hockey League a couple of years ago, and then so this year he's come back to prove that how good he is, and he is a good player. And so he said, "Dad, I'm building a golf course up in a resort," and he phones. He says, "Dad," and this is in preseason. He says, "Some guy jumped me, and I was in a fight, and I couldn't get my gloves off, and I didn't want to tell him the ropes of that." So I get back and talk to him. Well, in today's game, because of the shields and all that, you don't want to bust up your hand in the first few. So I gave him a couple tricks, gave him some old NHL tricks to show how tough you are, and so I come back for his opening game of the season, having a great game. 8-minute mark in the third period, he's killing a penalty. He takes a body in the corner and the puck goes behind their net. So he's peeling back, and I see a player on the other team rolling on the ice, and their medical staff come flying out, and my son's kind of people are talking to him. Then he gets a match penalties, which is an automatic 3-game suspension. And he's kind of saying, "Hey, Dad, you told me this trick to show this trick," and he moved the stick, and I accidentally hit him where it hurts, and
Ah,
it wasn't good. And he said, but the funny thing was, he got kicked out, but he still was the star of the game. They gave the star of the game, not because he hurt this guy, but he's like, he played that well. But so you could kind of show these old tricks, and because I'd be dead right now if I didn't have some tricks that a few people, my old teammates, showed me to take care of myself. And he comes back, his first game back, and this is junior hockey, and he scored 4 goals his first game back, and then he goes and plays his first road trip in the first shift, actually. That in the game, he's coming off the ice, and his teammate got hit from behind and hit him, and he broke 2 of his upper ribs in his back. So he just got back, and he's doing great. He's, like I say, I'm proud of him. He does all the right things when he's out there, makes the right passes, and so it's kind of nice, to see that. But it's his thing. He loves the game, and he wants to play. So I'm his biggest fan, and it's kind of cool to watch him play. You know, when I played junior, I started at 14 and I'm already fighting and all this kind of stuff. And I just can't picture him, with the violence of the game then to play like that. It's like, because it's your own son too. You don't want him to get hurt. So it's been fun. And he's doing great.
So how old is he, and might we
He
see
just,
him in the NHL sometime?
well, he's got the abilities and he's very good. He's got to go prove himself. He's got to show. When he was there at the Hall of Fame in Red Barons, the coaches in Michigan phoned already. So I don't know if they're watching him now, but he's got to prove it on the ice how good he is. And he's a very smart kid. Very few people I thought would follow my footsteps, being highly intelligent in certain things. Not many, but he's an honors student. He just graduated and he's starting to take medicine at the university. So I said, well, I always told him you got to play 5 years in the NHL and then be a doctor to take care of me. So I was just kidding, but he's doing great. He's a smart kid and a great kid.
Well, we'll keep our eye out for Cole Babych coming along down the pike here in a little bit. You mentioned golf courses a little while ago, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit. You and Dave are involved with designing and building golf courses. When we first talked about coming on the podcast, you were way up near the Arctic Circle somewhere, near Great Bear Lake, I think it was, in the Northwest Territories, working on a course up there. And you told me that was the birthplace of hockey. Tell me about that a little bit.
Well, they claim I'm still, there's a lot of stories that it's called Delaney in the Northwest Territories on Great Bear Lake. I guess the Sir John Franklin, the Northern Expedition, they were coming down following the waters, and they found open ice, no snow on it, just glare ice, and they put something on their boots and they start sliding around playing what we call hockey today. And it's documented. I meant to find the exact research, but they claim that is the birthplace of hockey. And so it's kind of exciting to be building a golf course at that place. They do a commercial on the NHL, like on the broadcast, where they'll have a Quaker Oats uh, uh, doing a commercial, and they built a kind of restaurant in their arena, and they claim where hockey started, and that's the place where we're building this golf course, and it's very unique, and and to have those both kind of go together as building the golf course and then with hockey, it's cool. It's and exciting. We're having a great time doing it.
Yeah, a lot of people would probably think, well, can they really play golf that far north, close to the Arctic Circle? And you think about it, during the summer, they got 24 hours of daylight, I guess, right?
Yeah, yeah, and there's a place called Yellowknife not too far from there. They play 24 hours a day, and you can't get on the golf course. And their golf course is maybe you're used to being in the sand all the time. It's mostly sand with artificial greens and tee boxes, and then you carry a long little green mat that wherever your ball lands, you grab the ball, put it on top of the mat, and you hit again. I mean, they love golf. I think that golf is loved all over the world, and where we are building, we have 30, 40-foot trees, and it's in the kind of in Mackenzie Valley, and it's a lot of organic matter. You can build a USGA spec green there. It's the growing season is short, but there's probably as many hours of sunlight as anywhere else. But it's yeah, they have all the material we need to build, and they're excited to build. And we have there's a reality show called Buffalo Air, and they want to put together tournaments where they'll charter their 737 to go in there. It's probably only a 15-minute flight from Yellowknife, but there's a there's a supply and demand there. They want to do it, and it's like I say, this course actually the way we design, you'll have beautiful views of the mountains and the valleys and the lake. So it's just where it is. It's a little bit out of the way, but just like what is it? You build it, they'll come. So that's what they're hoping.
That's exciting. So, how many courses have you been involved with building at this point?
Now I just turned 29 again. This is my 11th course, and so the first four, like, well, two big ones, Dave and I both owned and started, and with some partners. But and then we were moving to the west, and we sold them. But yeah, I continued building design. We've been doing some designing and building, but yeah, this is the kind of my 11th. My brother, I can't answer that for you, but it's exciting. It's always nice, and it's kind of a where we in the summertime had a chance and started golfing, and you kind of look, we're farmers, so we have kind of the three green thumb, and it came all together. And in the early 80s, I'm aging myself because I'm only 29, but early 80s, we started building our 18-hole golf course, and then we built another one. And so those three real quick that we owned, and along with the water slide park, and it was kind of, try to generate some kind of an income after our hockey careers, because the game was violent. I don't know what the average age is now, but I think it was like a 3.7 years. That's your average career. So I was kind of planning, you know, the way I played. Everybody wanted to kill me. I thought, well, okay, in the fourth or fifth year, I'll be taking care of these places, I guess. I'll last a little longer than that.
So we're going to be talking about Wayne Babych golf courses, just like Pete Dye or Jack Nicklaus at some point, right?
Well, yeah, they have a great teams behind them. It's we don't have such a big team, but we build some nice golf courses. But if you have 30, 40 million, I can build you an absolutely drop dead gorgeous. We deal with like 5 to 10 million, so it's a little different. But same thing, we try to make it beautiful.
I'm still working on that first 5 million, so I think I'm out of that game. Well, have to
So
that another
we always compare, I don't know if you've talked to a lot of guys, but we always compare, me being a 50 goal scorer when I signed my contract, and I think I made 1.4 million my whole 10-year career before I got hurt. So it's and I think if I was a 50 goal scorer now, I think I could in 2 months, maybe at the max, I'd be in that. So, but it is what it is. It's had a lot of fun. We
It's a
played
money
for the
pit,
fun.
no doubt about that for sure. So I also understand you're involved with Canadian Friends of Hockey, helping Ukrainian kids learn to play. Fans, we'll get to Wayne's hockey career here in just a bit, but there's so much interesting stuff that he's involved with. I wanted to touch on this real quick too. Tell us about that effort.
Well, it started in 2017 that, a group, well, I was approached by a group of people, Dave and I, and to go over to Ukraine and, teach these young kids. There was kind of no one going over there. Hockey is loved by a lot, but, the facilities, the cost of the equipment. So when we went there, and we went to Lviv and Kiev, and looked at that, and we brought equipment with us. Their rink, I guess, for example, in St. Louis, if you have there's a city like St. Louis, and you're now everything's kind of close, but St. Charles, it was like from downtown, it's like let's just say 45 minutes away. Well, that's where their rink is, out of town, 45 minutes away, and that's where they play hockey. Anyway, what we were trying to do is to help these kids, and we're Ukrainian, and we were going there every year, sending equipment, the need fundraising here, doing all kinds of things for them. And then we were supposed to be there 2 days before the war started, and we were told, something's not right there. Don't book your flights. And we'd have been in the Carpathian Mountains snow skiing, and then doing a week of hockey camps, and ending up in a place called Odessa on the beach there, relaxing and getting to know where my grandparents came from, and how beautiful a country it is. And shockingly enough, sure enough, that happened, and we haven't gone back since. We've been sending hockey every couple months to the kids, because they're still playing. There's quiet areas where they're not being bombed, and so, that has been our efforts. We've had golf tournaments, and we have banquets. A good teammate, Bernie, came in for our golf tournament this last year. It's him being a good Ukrainian too. It's, the support, people see the need, and, obviously there's a lot of needs around in your backyard also. we take it to heart. These young kids that they're in the middle of a war, but they still love the game of hockey. So we're trying to supply that. The sad thing this last year, we just had an event a couple of weeks ago where we raised money. They've asked us for sledge hockey, which is obviously with people that don't have certain limbs, but they can still play. And a lot of the kids in Ukraine have been losing limbs in the war, and so now we're sending sledge hockey equipment and sleds to them so they can continue playing the game they love, just a little different way of playing it. And so like I said, that's kind of where our hearts are right now, and continue doing that kind of stuff.
I guess you got to keep an eye on the war situation over there pretty closely, huh?
Yes, yeah.
Well, let's talk about Wayne's hockey career a little bit. What was your early exposure to hockey that you remember? I mean, do you remember putting on skates for the first time?
I remember, yeah, and it was our little backyard garden hockey rink. My dad spent hours building it for us, and we got back there. We had, I think, the two-bladed skate. Mom didn't want us to get hurt, so it was a little more safe. Our probably the size of your living room is the size of our rink, but we played after school, did our homework, and then we went out there until it was kind of time to go to bed. It was the love of it. We also kind of were part-time farmers, so we on our farm we had a big lake in the back, and we spent hours and hours, starting a fire along the shoreline and playing till it was too late, time to go to bed. It was a passion. One of my, I had a big passion for baseball. My dad, he was a great athlete. He could skate, but he wasn't like, he grew up playing baseball, not hockey. And I was drafted by Major League Baseball, probably twice the player I was as hockey, but the money wasn't there. And then, as things kind of filled in, I became a decent hockey player, and everybody wanted to kill me, so that's why I was fast, because I didn't want them to catch me. But it's those backyards, and I remember playing for hours and hours, going to the community center and playing and playing, and my brother, being 3 years younger than me, but looks older than me, uh, he just wanted to be better. So obviously I lasted 10 years in the NHL, and my brother lasted 20, but we loved the game. Any Canadian kid, that was sort of like in those days, the dream come true to play in the NHL. And one of the motivating things was, we grew up in a very poor family, and we had the opportunity. It changes your life when you become a pro hockey player, and a lot to do with the money, uh, and it's you could treat your family to better things, and that sort of was the biggest motivation. We wanted to make our parents proud of, and plus to give back from their sacrifices. So it was good, and I know what that means now. You have a kid, you'll do anything for them, and so it's it's part of you, part of our the way I was brought up, and the family was brought up, and yeah, it was great. It was the hours and hours, and here in Canada you can pretty much almost everywhere flood a rink or flood a little spot and start skating on it. It's
Yeah, I've heard that story multiple times on this podcast, or a similar story at least. But I read that Wayne Babbage could throw a baseball 95 miles per hour, and could have been a
um,
really high-end baseball pitcher.
well, that
Important.
was kind of slow. You're I don't know who told you that, but like I'll tell you a little story. So I was a baseball player, and I loved the game, and I was 17 years old, going into playing Canadian championships. I was I was asked by this team, the Edmonton. It was an Edmonton seniors team that was playing and it was a place called Drayton Valley. And what they did was all the teams across Canada for the Canadians, and obviously a lot of the major league scouts were at this event. And so they had a sort of like a rule. Pitchers were only allowed to pitch 15 innings. So you had to use your ball pen and stuff like that. What kind of rule that was, it was interesting. But anyway, we started, and they used me as a hitter. I loved to hit, and I was fast, long time ago. So anyway, we we lost the first game 2-1, so it's a double knockout. If you lose twice, obviously you're out. And anyway, we continued playing in this tournament. And we kept winning and winning, and now we're in the finals to the team that we lost to the first game. So we had to beat them twice. And then so we used our main pitcher or pitchers. We beat them. Now we have a final game. And they decided to have it a 7-inning game for the final because they had to go catch a red-eye flight out of Edmonton back to Halifax. So they made it 7 inning, which is fine with everybody because everybody's kind of getting. So they came up to me and says, "Wayne, we have no more pitchers. Do you mind pitching?" And that's what I did. I love pitching. My dad, he was a pitcher, and he showed me pressure points on the fast. I can move the ball and et cetera, et cetera. Well, so that final game, I got 21 strikeouts. So it was everybody started looking around like Houston. Well, Houston was the first team they started with. So about 3 days later, they come to Edmonton they brought their pitching coach, I think their assistant general manager, and their whatever. They brought a whole bunch of people, like 5 people, I think it was. So I'm pitching, and they're asking me to throw certain pitches, and I never knew how hard I can pitch, or throw, and so I gave him the fastball. The first time I ever seen the speed gun, like we're how fast. And I remember 103 miles an hour. And they told me, that's not good, Wayne. And I didn't know how fast I could throw. And they said, you're going to wreck your arm that way. So, but I was like a slingshot. It was just a natural thing, which was, I guess, good. But so all of a sudden I got offered from the contracts from the Yankees, Montreal, Toronto, Houston, and Seattle. And Seattle was they offered the highest amount. This is 35,000 to play and 35,000 to sign. I thought, well, okay, now hockey at that time was like 100,000 to sign and 80,000 to play. So that was kind of the deciding factor that why I stuck to hockey, because it was more money. And it's kind of funny, after my NHL career, I was on this Legends of Baseball tour with Ferguson Jenkins and all these guys going across Canada. And so we're on a ferry from Victoria, BC to Vancouver, and he says, we started talking, and they found out what I did, and they knew me more of hockey than anything else. And I said, Fergie, he said, what were you getting paid in this year? And he said, I was getting paid, I'll never forget, $37,500. I said, wow, geez, they did offer me a pretty good, decent contract. But then they said, if I'm not mistaken, they signed a huge TV deal where each team got 20 million and they had to give half to the players and half to the ownership. He said, my salary went from 37,500 to 350,000 in 1 year without me even negotiating. I said, really? Mind you, probably Bernie Federko would have probably missed me, or Blaker would have missed me on their lines. I'm just kidding, but yeah, it's kind of interesting how. But yeah, I love ball, but I loved hockey too, and so it turned out, I think, okay. Unfortunately, I probably broke every bone in my body playing hockey, but it's fun. It was fun.
We'll talk about your injury situation here in just a second. Let's go back to the beginning of your hockey career, though. You drafted first or third overall by the Blues in the '78 amateur draft. Offered contracts by the WHA Edmonton Oilers and the Quebec Nordiques, but you chose to sign with the Blues and junior hockey in Edmonton, and you go right from junior hockey to playing in the NHL. Quite not many people can claim that.
Well, it's, the way they played in those days, and you look at a Tiger Williams or Lanny McDonald or all these guys that were the number one draft picks into the NHL, and just the way we traveled. This is my understanding. The way we traveled in the Western, it was called the Western Canada Hockey League, and then it turned to the Western Hockey League. Over 21-day road trips on the bus, hours and hours, and just sort of almost like the NHL program. And guys out of there got drafted. Most of them did pretty good. It's just because they're used to that style of living and playing. Fighting. The violence was was except it was there, and that never bothered me. Except when you get to the NHL, you're fighting grown men, not guys your size. So it was a quite learning curve. Were you I always kind of say it once in a while, like you're not just having a hockey fight, you're fighting for your life. You don't want to die out there. So it's a different, your body, your fear, your desire to stay alive comes to light. And so yeah, it's a little different, but like I played the first 3 years with the Edmonton Oil Kings, and then our franchise moved to the Portland Winterhawks, and that's where the first 2 years there, and that's where I got drafted into St. Louis, and I couldn't have been happier. To know a guy like Emil France is a great man. He treated me great, and he got me back with him in Hartford, where he got my brother and I together. So it was good. It was good. It was a good it was a good stepping stone to get into the NHL. And it's kind of funny. They always I didn't know. You get the Ray Ferraros and all these guys, the great goal scorers and junior and stuff like that. They never describe me as sort of like a that. They describe me as a really good NHL player. And I kind of seemed a little bit lesser, but I kind of realized that the game that I played at those days was more like the style of the NHL, that I could handle kind of pretty much anything. And then being blessed by when Emil got me, playing with Bernie and these guys, Brian Sutter, it was like coming home, so it was great.
Yeah, first couple of years you're with Sutter and Federko. It's called the Kid Line. It kind of got people in St. Louis excited about the Blues again, the way you guys played. Obviously, the team didn't do all that great, but that line was really special. But then came the 54 goal season in 80-81. You're playing with Blair Chapman and Jorgen Pedersen then. What made that line click?
Well, it's kind of, we like Bernie and Brian and I were playing, I think the first 20 games, and I think our team, we had a good, we were developing to, really good team, and we were 10-10, and Red Berenson we were playing in Boston, and I don't think our success in Boston was very good. And they said, Babs, we're going to put you with Blake Dunlop and Jorgen Patterson. We're going to move Blair Chapman over with Bernie, and I said, okay. It's kind of, it was different. But next thing, if I remember correctly, we beat Boston. I think it was 5-2, and our line got most of the goals. So, kind of thinking that they're always watching to just say Bernie's line, and now they got a two-line system because Jorgen Patterson was a highly skilled player, and Blaker was a great passer, and you know he set us up like he had his own he had some great skills that and I can't be and I think probably the biggest thing, I think he was a left-handed shot, so he kind of always liked to pass to the right side. So did Bernie. Had a lot of success with Bernie. Like Bernie was great. Like and unfortunately, even my rookie year, I was on a pace 40 plus goals, and then I got two-handed in Colorado, broke both my ankles, and kind of that. I guess you don't skate very well or fast with two broken ankles. So that was kind of the mentality of those days. But playing with Bernie and Brian, probably one of the greatest leaders that I ever played with. His leadership and knowing he always has your back, and he played that Western Canada style hockey or Western Hockey League style, and he gave it your all, and it was a great. He was a great motivator, a great leader, a great like a role model. Like he just wanted to play as hard as he did, and have success, and not to we played. I think my heart, and I'm sure everybody played on the team. We played for St. Louis, the fans, and that's kind of how we grew up. We played for the people that support us, and including our parents back home. You wanted them to be proud of us when when they see the box scores and stuff that we did well, and it grew, and it's kind of it was a huge motivator, and yeah, with those guys, and then with being with Blaker, and then but I after my 50 goal season, I got into a real bad injury, just the way I played, and it just it never was the same. Yeah, unfortunately, I just finally had my shoulder replaced not too long ago, so now I can sleep again.
I was debating whether to bring that up. It was a preseason game in Winnipeg, right? And you got in a fight with a guy by the name of
Jim,
Man. I
Jimmy
think
Mann. Yeah, no, yeah, we were our training camp was in Regina, Saskatchewan. So, and as St. Louis Blues, we stick up for one another. And I think at the end of the game, we played the night before in Grand Forks or Fargo in an exhibition game, and then Jimmy, who's an aggressive player, he did what he did, and he did something Mike Liut, me being probably the closest guy, I said, "We'll get you to more than like like it just hockey talk on the A side." Then, sure enough, in Regina, the next game we are playing, and I did not like him like as a in that now we're good friends now, but in that day, I wanted to hit him one more time, and when I went back to hit him, the referee grabbed my wrist, and my whole rotator cuff was ripped apart, and they never did surgery. They just thought I'd be able to rehab it. They put me in a body harness so I can't lift my arm up above as high as my shoulder, so that it would restrict me because most of the movements in hockey are low below your shoulders. So, and I wasn't a baseball player. Obviously, a baseball player. I remember Dr. Gillen saying if it was, he would have operated and fixed it. But everything is below the shoulder, so we'll do this. I know I came back twice. I ripped it because the first came back, I'm in another fight and I rip it apart. Just the way, And then they finally put me under and they manipulated it, tore all the scar tissue and tried to rebuild it. But it was just, unfortunately, well, as a player, I always wanted to come back, but it unfortunately just never was the same. So I had to kind of change my way of style. But that wasn't something that was advertised in those days. With the people, you just try to do your best, and you know that's just the way it was. But I was, past my 3 point some years. I thought, I was doing great. Keep going, tape me up.
took a lot of unnecessary grief, I think, because your production wasn't the same as what people were used to,
No,
and but like you said, it wasn't advertised what all you were going through, and I think even today, I think guys play with a lot of dings and bruises and breaks and strains that people don't know about, but that's just hockey, the way it goes. You've had a lot of injuries over your career. I understand you have a photo of Tommy Woodcock.
yeah, yeah. I got kind of so. What happened after my career? Not too long ago, maybe a couple of years ago, I was invited to the St. Louis Blue fan club. So I accepted, and 95% of the people were, happy. They asked nice questions, and like, oh, the people were great. I got one question that, guy said, "Well, what happened to you, Babych?" Like, and I thought, it's over the 10-year mark. They can't come back after me to say what, just like a criminal or your taxes, they can't come back. So I told the story, of my injuries. And, you could believe me or not believe me. And some people knew about that. But then some fans sent me a picture of Tommy. I think it was at the All-Star game. Takes, every game it took about 45 minutes to tape me up. So some fan sent this. I don't have it in color, but with my, I had two broken ankles. I got taped up like a football player, and then I broke my hand, my scaphoid. So Woody's taping that up, and then I had my cartilage removed out of my left knee, and then I wore the shoulder harness for the rest of my career. And so you might laugh at this, but hopefully you can see it's in black and white. But that's Tommy taping me up, and that's me with hair. And it's like, yeah,
For those of you who are just listening to the podcast, he's got tape on both ankles. He's got the knee all wrapped up. He's got the shoulder all wrapped up, and Tommy's working on the right hand on that photo.
God bless Tommy. Like he kept me alive, and he was the best I've ever was associated with as a trainer. He was, he, he made you laugh after an injury. I remember. Here's one funny thing, because like obviously I I got hurt, I didn't shy away from anybody, and maybe that's my stupidity, but to pick my spots. But we're playing Washington, and this is when Scott Stevens first, got in the league, and he's a solid kid that he can hit. And I get a pass, and I'm flying up the ice, and then he hits me. And he goes flying, and I go flying. I go down. I got my wind knocked out of me. And so I'm grabbing my knee. The old protocol is grab your knee and start pumping to get that air up. Woody comes flying in the ice. Their trainer comes flying out with Scott, and we're kind of side by side. And I can't breathe. And Woody saying, and he made me laugh all the time. He said, "I think it's his knee. I think it's his knee." And I can't breathe. It's the wind knock, but he's saying my knee, and I'm ready to kill him to say it's not my knee. But I couldn't say it because I
Couldn't
had
breathe.
no voice to. It's no, he was great. He made me laugh. He loved when I got, obviously smacked across the hands where I had the blue thumb, the blue nails, and he used to like drilling holes and seeing the blood squirt out, and he just loved that. He just kind of he was fun. He was a fun in the dressing room. I got a lot of stories about that guy. He was quite a character, but again, he saved me. Definitely saved me from.
Maybe we'll have
So
to do another podcast sometime and hear some of those Woody Tom Woodcock stories. Well, let's move down the road a little bit. You got to play with your brother Dave in Hartford. You mentioned Emil Francis brought you back together in 85, 86. That had to be a thrill.
yeah, it was. It's something that we always kind of, hope to do that. I was just to go back. I was blessed, to play with some great players. Gretzky was my centerman in the World Juniors, and then I got to play with Bernie. Uh, you know, there's, he doesn't have to take a backseat to anybody the way he played, and then Blaker, who obviously played with me, my 50 goal season, and on, and then I go move over to Pittsburgh, and I marry Lemieux's right winger his first year. It's and then going over to Hartford, Quebec. I briefly stint until I go into Hartford. Michel Goulet and Dale Hunter I play with, and the Stasny. So I never wanted to leave St. Louis, and because of my injuries, and I thought this I can go on to another hour of talking, but it was the toughest thing I ever had to do. But not but there's no buts. It was the toughest thing I ever had to do. And then when I ended up with my brother, Emil went over to Hartford, and as soon as he got Dave from Winnipeg, he got me, and yeah, we had some success there. We had, I think we were one of the worst teams in the league that year. I was on Quebec was number one, and I was playing, with got traded. We won, I think, 17 of our last 20 some games. We got into the last playoff spot. Quebec was number one. We took them out four straight, and then we lost in the seventh game, double overtime against Montreal. That was Patrick Waugh's first year, and where they went on to win the Stanley Cup. But I got to play with my brother. It was that was a thrill. I'm sure any brother's thrill is to play with their brother in the NHL. And yeah, that was and Emil was like a second dad. Maybe going back to one of your questions. Guys that helped me out. Yeah, my dad, my mom, my brother, my sister. But Emil Francis, he met me at the airport. He was like a dad, treated me. A second dad, another second, is Barclay Plager. He showed me all he was an amazing guy, individual, and he taught me a lot of tricks, to protect myself. I got to laugh. One of my earliest things, I had some fights, and I was successful in the fights. And the Benner brothers, Harvey and Kurt. Next thing you know, I'm supposed to be a goal scorer, and they're telling me, okay, if you fight this guy, he throws with his left. Or listen, I'm a lover, not a fighter. Kind of thing. What do you guys tell me this? I'm not going out there to go fight. But anyway, it was, just the guys, it was such a great bunch of great guys, and continued throughout my career. I met some really good people, and but I'm very grateful, like for those guys that helped me. Especially the guys like Bernie and Blake, and that started my career. It was good. But Emil Francis, Barclay Plager, Red Berenson, great people.
Yeah, yeah. I I wish the playgroup guys were still around to
Yeah,
have on the podcast. Bobby, we lost a little while ago, and of course,
yeah.
Barkley in '88. We talked about that right before the All Star game here in St. Louis. So um, let's have a little fun for the next few minutes before we wrap it up. So, what about Wayne Babych would surprise people? What about you would you think if somebody said, "Oh, that's not Wayne Babych," they would be surprised by?
Oh boy, that's a good question. My brother and I. Well, I used to remember I had my own cooking show in St. Louis. My brother and
Oh,
I have these seasoning salts for barbecues. We do that. That's my, yeah. My brother, when he remarried, he married a family that was in the restaurant business, Italians, and yeah, he's a great cook. And someone approached us in Vancouver to do this, and yeah, it's turning out very successful. Maybe on January 12th, I'll bring a few of these bottles and we can start something going on over there. Maybe you can be our distributor. You can, well, you can plug us in every time you see it. But no,
well,
it's turned out great. Yeah, it's, I know we're running out of time, but you're talking about some hockey stories. I don't know if we have time to, I tell you this one, that no one knows about. It's
sure,
kind of like
yeah,
another, it's kind of like another one of these, I remember being the first St. Louis Blue to score 50. And it was in March, I still had, a few games left to try to get that 50th. And we're playing Montreal. I always had to play against Gainey so anyway, at the blue line, Larry Robinson and Bob Gainey ran to each other. So I had the puck from the blue line in. I knew I had to get rid of it fast, but, I wanted to score where I usually like to score is a top glover on the far side on the ice, and it was kind of my two spots that you know. Again, I want to shoot where the goalie's not, but that was sort of where it was. So I come and I'm waiting. The goalie drops his glove, and I'm aiming top glove, shooting the bullet. Like I kind of pride myself to shoot hard and quick. And he dropped his glove, and I let her rip, and that thing went a bullet on the ice between his legs. But again, but anyway, everybody after the game said, "What a great shot!" And I didn't say anything. I didn't say I missed by shot by 4 feet. I could hear Bob Gainey's skates behind me catching me. So I said, "I gotta go. I gotta do this pretty quick here." And but it was a thrill. I was the score, be the first guy in St. Louis to do that and to score at the Montreal Forum, which is, a historical, like a church of hockey. And, to the guys I used to kind of watch on TV, like Larry Robinson, Gainey, Lafleur, to score against them. It was cool. It was really cool. And I was happy, obviously to do that. And then plus the success of our team was great. And yeah, and I appreciate St. Louis giving me that chance to do that.
okay. Well, I'm looking forward to tasting some of that seasoning when you bring it down in
I'll
January.
bring, I'll bring you some.
So,
Maybe unless I
yeah.
get a tariff, little big tariff charges at the
Oh,
border.
yeah.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding. I just, you, you, you walked into that, but I'm just kidding. It is what it is. I'm just kidding.
If you had any regrets, what would they be?
Well, the biggest regret is not leaving St. Louis, but I was a walking past, I guess, for a better word. And again, going back, I played for the fans and for family and stuff. But when people don't realize what you're going through, and then I took pride in scoring, and when you can't do that anymore, when you can't, it's just hard. But see, maybe it changes what you need. The last thing I ever want to do is leave St. Louis, and it was my heart. I still bleed blue. I still cheer for them. I'm actually just got my tickets to the January 20th game here in Winnipeg for the Blues.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't want to miss it. But it was great to be there. Meeting the guys, the new team, and going to the dressing room, talking to the guys and the coaching. They're all great people, and the organization and the ownership, It's real cool, and just to see some of the fans that that I saw when I played, them being around, and it's a great city, and I was blessed to be able to play there for most of my career.
Well, we know you will be remembered because of the Hall of Fame induction back in January here in St. Louis and elsewhere in hockey. But how would you like to be remembered when people mention the name Wayne Babych?
Oh wow, well, that I gave every bone of my body, I broke every bone of my body for No, I just as a guy that well, I don't know, that's I gave my heart to St. Louis. I tried my best, and uh, that's and the great people that I met there. You guys made it obviously my second home. Uh, I enjoyed every second of it. I do wish I never left, but just it happened. It's water under the bridge, but I still love coming back there and seeing the people that I care for. I love some people there. It's been great, and I look forward to being there on January 12th again.
Well, Wayne, thanks so much for giving us your time today. I appreciate it so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the Hall of Fame ceremony coming up in January. And all the best to you and all the things you're involved with here.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being with me for another episode of the St. Louis Blues Hockey Legends Podcast. We'll have another legend coming up soon, so stay tuned to our social media for news on who that legend might be. Visit paguytom.com or blueshockeylegends.com and sign up for our Legends email notifications. The Legends Podcast is also available on the Scoops Sports Network at scoopswithdannymac.com. Video of the podcast is published the Monday after the Friday release of the audio. As always, please like and share on Facebook, X, and Instagram, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It all keeps the Legends Podcast alive and well. Tom Calhoun here saying thanks for being a fan, and let's go Blues!